The day Karen from the HOA parked in my garage like she owned it, something in me switched. She called it community cooperation. I called it trespassing. So I locked the door, packed my bags, and disappeared for 2 weeks, while her $90,000 BMW sat trapped inside, baking in the summer heat. I came home dead on my feet after a 13-hour emergency shift, the kind where fluorescent light burns your retinas and the buzz of electricity still hums behind your eyes. The gravel under my boots crunched like dry bones as I crossed the driveway, ready for nothing more heroic than reheating leftovers and collapsing on the couch. Then my remote clicked, the garage door rumbled open, and the world stopped. Parked dead center in my garage, was a metallic silver BMW SUV. Not blocking, not squeezed in. Perfectly centered like it belonged there. Leather scent, coconut vanilla air freshener, and a faint hiss from the engine still cooling. For half a second I thought I'd pulled into the wrong driveway, but the dented toolbox, the sawdust smell, and the half-built workbench told me otherwise. Someone had driven into my sanctuary and claimed it like stolen land. The license plate frame read, "Proud HOA Treasurer, Willow Creek Estates." Of course it did. The side door creaked. Out stepped Karen Whitmore, mid-50s, fitness tracker tan line, blazer too crisp for a Tuesday. Clipboard in one hand, phone in the other. She smiled like she was inspecting one of her properties instead of standing in mine. "Oh, hi, Jake. I'm just using your garage for a couple of days. My driveway's being resealed. HOA emergency clause, you understand?" Emergency clause. The words hung in the air like a bad smell. I wiped my hands on my jeans, trying to steady the pulse in my jaw. "Pretty sure that clause doesn't exist, Karen." "It's in review," she said, waving the clipboard like divine scree. "Ipcher. You'll be compensated with community credit." Community credit. I almost laughed. I'd spent 6 years saving for this house, patching power lines in blizzards, missing birthdays with my kid, and now some HOA monarch thought community credit bought her access to my tool shed and my peace of mind. Her perfume mixed with motor oil. The clash made me nauseous. "Move it tonight," I said, keeping my voice level. "I need my workspace clear." She glanced at her watch, already halfway back to her car. "Tomorrow morning, first thing, promise." The promise evaporated faster than the sound of her heels clicking down my driveway. Morning came. The BMW stayed. A bright orange HOA notice fluttered on my door. "Failure to maintain garage security. Fine. $150. The woman had fined me for her trespass. That was when the exhaustion snapped into something sharper. Focus. I didn't yell, didn't bang on her door. I just took photos. Car, notice, timestamps. Years in electrical work teach you that anger burns out fast, evidence lasts forever. By noon, I'd called Derek, college roommate turned real estate attorney. "She fined you for leaving your garage open after parking in it herself?" he said, half laughing, half furious. "Yup." "Then congratulations, my friend. You've just been handed a lawsuit on a silver BMW platter." While Derek dug into bylaws, I walked the neighborhood. Same trimmed lawns, same perfect mailboxes. But under that paint-by-numbers piece, you could feel the tension. Curt waves, blinds twitching, the silence of people trying not to attract the HOA's attention. One neighbor, old Mr. Harris, leaned over his hedge and whispered, "She fined my wife for hanging wind chimes, said they were audibly intrusive." That night, I stared at the closed garage door. Behind it sat $80,000 of German engineering and 2 decades of my patience. A thought crept in. Quiet. Dunge. Rouse. What happens if I just... lock it? Steel clicked. Padlock latched. Key turned. The sound was clean, final, satisfying. By the next afternoon, her texts started. Karen, Jake, I need access to the garage for HOA inspection. Me. Inspection of what? Karen. Community safety compliance. Me. Then bring the cops, Karen. She didn't. Instead, she taped another violation notice to my door. Non-cooperation with board authority. I added it to the growing pile on my counter. Derek called that evening. You really locked her out? Yep. And you're sure the property line puts the entire garage inside your deed? Survey says 18 inches past the curb. Why? Because you're bulletproof. Let her dig her own grave. I leaned back in my chair, the house humming softly with the rhythm of the fridge and the tick of the kitchen clock. For the first time since moving here, the quiet felt good. Solid. Mine. Outside, the summer air thickened with cicadas and the faint echo of Karen's voice on the phone somewhere down the street, shrill and frantic. I almost felt bad for her. Almost. Because by sunrise, I'd be gone. 2 weeks off-grid, camping with no signal, no HOA, and one very locked garage holding the Queen's chariot hostage. And that, I figured, was the fairest trade this neighborhood had seen in years. 2 days into my camping trip, the mountains were quiet enough that I could hear my own heartbeat again. Pine needles under my boots, river cold against my wrists, my daughter laughing while trying to toast a marshmallow without setting it on fire. No HOA emails, no fluorescent meetings about lawn height. Just sky. Then my satellite phone blinked. 12 missed calls from Willow Creek. The first voicemail was Karen's voice. Tight, controlled, almost friendly. Hi, Jake. Little mix-up about your garage access. Could you unlock it? HOA inspection issue. Totally minor. By message 6, the calm was gone. This is obstruction of board duties. You can't hold HOA property hostage. By 12, she was full-blown unhinged. I'll have the city tow it. You'll regret this. I closed the phone, tucked it back into my pack, and breathed in the mountain air. 2 weeks. Let her shout into the void. Back in Willow Creek, the void shouted back. Neighbors later told me Karen had shown up at 6 a.m. with a clipboard and a locksmith in tow. Claimed there was an electrical hazard. The locksmith took one look at my reinforced deadbolt and asked for a work order. Karen couldn't produce one. He left. She stayed, pacing like a general without an army. By day 3, she'd plastered the neighborhood bulletin board with flyers. Community alert. Safety violation at Lot 42. Resident unavailable. Lot 42 was me. Old Mrs. Halpern saw her taking photos through my windows. Tom Rodriguez, the veteran 2 houses over, recorded her trying my side gate latch with what looked suspiciously like a butter knife. He texted me the footage once he got my signal through satellite relay. You might want to frame this. Meanwhile, Derek was working from the legal front like a surgeon with a scalpel. He'd requested the HOA's insurance policy, cross-checked it with county filings, and found a gem. Their authority ended at the curb. Garages were private property, full stop. Meaning every notice, every fine, every minute that BMW sat inside was trespassing multiplied by days. Let her keep panicking, Derek said over satellite call. The longer she keeps that car locked in there, the more she owes you. How much so far? By statute? Around $350 per day. Civil penalty adds up fast when someone's ego's on the meter. The fire cracked between us, bright and satisfying. Emma handed me a marshmallow like a peace treaty. Daddy, are we hiding from the mean lady? I smiled. We're giving her time to think about her choices. Back home, Karen wasn't thinking. She was spiraling. She called an emergency HOA meeting. Half the board didn't. A tea show. The other half filmed her meltdown for proof of abuse of authority. She paced in front of the projector screen showing my garage door, locked tight, while explaining to 3 exhausted neighbors how my unauthorized confinement of HOA property endangered the whole community. "He's sabotaging our safety rating," she shrieked, stabbing at the slideshow. Tom later told me that was the moment her vice chair quietly hit record. She doubled down the next day, filed a noise complaint against a vacant house, claimed she heard illegal electrical work inside. When the county inspector arrived and found the place empty, the report listed her name under false claim initiation. By the end of week 1, the whole neighborhood was done pretending. The same people who used to peek through blinds now watched her openly, whispering, filming, posting. Mrs. Chen from across the street created a group chat called The Block Watch, No Karens Allowed. Within 48 hours, half the subdivision was in it. They shared screenshots of her Facebook rants, photos of her trying to jimmy my garage handle, and one glorious video of her shouting at a squirrel she mistook for a trespasser. The caption read, "HOA Wildlife Enforcement in Action." Every ping that hit my satellite phone out in the wilderness was another update, another domino falling. By day 9, Derek texted one line that made me laugh out loud into the forest. City planning just opened an ethics investigation on her husband. You started something big. The mountain wind carried the smell of pine and rain. Emma was building a fort out of driftwood, humming to herself. I watched her, thinking about how sometimes justice doesn't need noise, just patience and a locked door. Day 12. New voicemail from Tom, breathless with disbelief. "She tried to bribe me, Jake, cash in hand. Said she needed 1 hour in your garage to recover staging materials. Offered $500. I've got it. On video." Then, quieter. "Police saw it. Officer Martinez says this is textbook harassment. You're golden, brother." I closed my eyes, feeling the satisfaction rise like slow thunder. Out here, surrounded by mountains older than her arrogance, I finally understood the power of silence. Every hour I stayed gone was another nail in the coffin she was building for herself. The last night of the trip, Emma fell asleep under the stars, whispering, "Do you think the mean lady learned her lesson yet?" "Not yet," I said, watching the embers fade. "But she's about to." When I pulled back into Willow Creek 2 weeks later, the neighborhood didn't look like the one I'd left. The lawns were still surgically trimmed, the mailboxes still perfect white, but the air, thicker, buzzing with gossip and diesel from a news van idling on the corner, smelled like justice warming up. Tom met me halfway down the block, camera slung over his shoulder like a trophy. "Welcome home, brother," he grinned. "You're trending." "Trending?" He held up his phone. A Facebook video, Karen shouting at a police officer in front of my garage, already had 12,000 views. The caption read, "HOA treasurer loses it after locking herself out of homeowner's garage." The comments were a buffet of satisfaction. Classic Karen move. Guy deserves a medal. Hope he charged parking fees. I parked, stepped out, and saw it for myself. Her BMW was still there, dusty, forlorn, a wasp nest starting under the side mirror. Taped across my garage door, a bright yellow police notice. Evidence, do not tamper. Tom handed me a folder so thick it could have doubled as a weapon. "Everything you missed," he said. Inside, 17 police calls initiated by Karen in my absence. 3 break-in attempts, all filmed by Tom's security setup. 1 trespassing charge already filed against her. Dozens of neighbors state me. Aunt's photos, videos, timestamps. "Officer Martinez finally had enough," Tom said, shaking his head. "She tried to bring in a licensed contractor to break your padlock. Guy turned out to be a handyman from Craigslist. When the cops arrived, he gave her name up in 10 seconds flat." I flipped through the report. It read like dark comedy. Under statement, the contractor had written, "Lady said it was her staging property for HOA photos." Under charges recommended, attempted burglary, solicitation, property harassment. You're kidding me. Wish I was, Tom said. Then she tried to bribe me again, this time with a gift card for cooperation. Cops have that on tape, too. The neighborhood had transformed in my absence. Where fear once lived, laughter had moved in. Kids rode scooters without being timed for driveway obstruction. Mrs. Chen hosted tea in her yard without Karen's ruler of righteousness measuring her fence height. Everywhere I walked, people smiled, nodded, whispered. Not pity, respect. When I opened my mailbox, a letter sat inside, stamped from the State Attorney General's office. Inside, notice of an ongoing investigation into HOA corruption and municipal ethics violations. My garage situation was officially labeled Key Incident Number 004. I called Derek immediately. She's done, isn't she? Not yet, he said, voice calm, measured. But you've lit the fuse. They're moving fast. Her husband's under review for conflict of interest, and the board just voted to suspend her indefinitely. Indefinitely? Which is lawyer speak for forever. That evening, Karen finally appeared, disheveled, eyes red, blazer wrinkled, still pretending she had authority left. She stood at the edge of my driveway, yelling from behind the police tape like a dethroned monarch demanding her castle back. "Jake, you can't just keep my property!" I leaned against my truck, arms crossed. Funny. Thought that was my garage. "This isn't over," she snapped. "You're going to regret humiliating me." Her voice cracked on me, like something deep inside had finally given way. A pair of officers were waiting nearby, expressionless. Officer Martinez stepped forward. "Ma'am, you're aware you've been instructed to avoid this residence." "I just need my car." "We'll arrange that legally," Martinez said. "For now, you're trespassing again." Karen froze. Her eyes darted from the officers to the neighbors filming with phones, to me, still calm, still quiet. Then she turned and walked away, shoulders collapsing inward, the sound of her heels on concrete no longer sharp, but hollow. That night, I sat on the porch with a cold beer, watching sunset spill gold over the street. Derek called again, excitement in his voice now. "Big update," he said. "AG's office executed search warrants this morning. Found financial discrepancies across multiple HOAs. Brenda, your Karen, used HOA funds for personal staging business. Federal fraud case incoming." "You're serious?" "Dead serious. You're a witness now, not just a victim. Turns out locking your garage might have unlocked a state investigation." I laughed softly, the kind of laugh that comes only when the universe finally tilts back toward balance. Guess patience pays rent. 2 days later, the neighborhood gathered for an emergency HOA meeting. Except this time, there were no rulers, no clipboards, no fake fines. Just homeowners, tired of fear, ready for change. Mrs. Chen stood and said what everyone else was thinking. "We let her run us like children, but Jake reminded us, our homes are ours, not theirs." Applause thundered through the room. Tom filmed it for posterity. For the first time, the HOA felt like what it was supposed to be, neighbors, not overseers. As the crowd dispersed, Derek's text pinged my phone. "Brenda and her husband arrested. Fraud, conspiracy, property manipulation. You start at an avalanche." I looked across the street at her empty McMansion, blinds drawn, porch dark. The same woman who once fined people for improper holiday lighting now had her own life dimmed by the laws she'd twisted. The BMW was still locked in my garage, silent and shrinking under layers of dust. I decided to leave it there a few more days, just until the paperwork caught up. Because sometimes justice doesn't need to be loud. Sometimes it just needs a deadbolt, a camera, and 2 weeks of peace. 3 weeks after Karen's arrest, Willow Creek didn't look like a neighborhood recovering from chaos. It looked reborn. The lawns still gleamed, the mailboxes still matched, but the fear that used to live behind every curtain had finally packed up and left. People were outside again. Kids rode bikes on sidewalks without checking over their shoulders. The sound of laughter had replaced the click of Karen's heels. I stood in my driveway with Tom and Mrs. Chen, watching a tow truck finally back up to my garage. Officer Martinez supervised while a new detective from the state attorney's office read through forms. The padlock clicked open, slow and final. "Ready?" Martinez asked. "Been ready for 2 weeks," I said. The garage door rolled up, sunlight spilling over the BMW like a spotlight on a fallen idol. Dust motes danced in the air. The leather still smelled expensive, but now it mixed with the sharp tang of motor oil and disuse. "She really left it like this," Tom muttered. "She really thought she could get away with it," I said. The officers photographed everything, catalogued the interior, then waved for the tow driver. As the winch groaned and the BMW rolled out into daylight, neighbors clapped. Actual applause. A few people even cheered. Mrs. Chen dabbed her eyes with a tissue. "I never thought I'd see the day," she whispered. "Me neither," I said. "Guess karma works on a schedule. Just not hers." The next morning, Channel 7 parked another van on the street. I'd expected it by now. The reporter, young, calm, too polite for her own safety, asked if I'd talk on camera. "Just one quote," she said. I nodded. "Sure." They set up in front of the garage again, yellow tape gone, sunlight clean. She asked what the last few weeks had been like. I looked past the lens, at my daughter playing hopscotch on the driveway, and said the truth. All I wanted was to use my own garage, but sometimes when you stand up for small things, you end up protecting bigger ones, like your neighbors, your rights, your peace. When the piece aired that night, the anchor called it the garage that exposed the HOA mafia. Derek called laughing so hard he almost dropped the phone. "You're officially local legend material," he said. By the end of the month, the state filed formal charges against 12 people, Karen, her husband, and multiple HOA officials across the county. Fraud, embezzlement, conspiracy. The Attorney General thanked citizen documentation and community cooperation during the press conference. It didn't mention my name, but it didn't need to. Everyone in Willow Creek knew who started it. Karen's McMansion went into foreclosure 2 weeks later. The irony was poetic. Her perfect house, now dark and empty, the lawn overgrown, paint flaking like pride. Someone tied a note to her front gate that said, HOA violation, neglect. At home, things settled into something that finally felt like normal. Emma and I finished her treehouse, the one that started as a weekend project and turned into a symbol of everything worth defending. We measured twice, cut once, and built the last section exactly 18 inches past the property line Karen once claimed as hers. "Rule number 1, Emma said, hammering the final nail. "No mean people allowed." "Rule number 2, I asked. "You have to share snacks." Smart kid. We strung lights along the railing, a soft gold against the evening. For the first time since I'd moved here, I could hear the crickets instead of Karen's voice. The civil case settled quietly. Derek handled the paperwork with surgical precision. The HOA's insurance company paid damages for harassment and trespassing, $12,000 plus fees. I didn't keep a cent. Instead, I used it to start the Willow Creek Property Rights Fund, managed by Mrs. Chen, with Derek donating his legal hours pro bono. Any homeowner facing HOA abuse could get free consultation. Within a month, 2 other neighborhoods asked for copies of our bylaws and records. Tom started helping them install security systems and teach documentation basics. Sarah Mitchell turned her notes into a YouTube channel called HOA Accountability Network. Within weeks, she had 50,000 subscribers. Turns out, people everywhere were tired of being told what color to paint their lives. One evening, as the last of the summer sun bled orange across the horizon, I grilled burgers while Emma chased fireflies. She stopped mid-laugh, looking up at the treehouse lights. "Daddy? Yeah, baby?" Do you think the mean lady ever learned her lesson? I thought of Karen's last voicemail, the one Derek forwarded from the court records. Her voice cracked halfway through. "I never meant for it to go this far. I just wanted control of something." "I think," I said, flipping a burger. "She learned that control isn't the same as respect." Emma nodded like she understood more than she should for her age, then went back to chasing light. 6 months later, property values in Willow Creek rose 8%. Not because of new lawns or stricter rules, because people finally wanted to live here. We had new board members now. Tom as president, Mrs. Chen as treasurer, Sarah as community liaison. Their first rule change was simple. No HOA officer may profit from or misuse community authority. The second rule, Tom said with a grin during the vote, garages belong to their owners, all forever. Unanimous approval. That night, after the meeting, I stood under the stars beside Emma's finished treehouse. The air smelled of cedar and sawdust. Inside the garage, my tools hung in perfect order again. Every wrench, every wire, every piece of my life right where it belonged. I closed the door, heard that deep mechanical rumble seal my world again, and smiled. Justice, I realized, doesn't always come with flashing lights or gavel strikes. Sometimes it comes quietly, like a lock clicking shut, a door closing on the past, and a little girl laughing under her own treehouse lights. And somewhere out there, Karen Whitmore had finally learned the one lesson every bully forgets. When you try to own someone else's space, you end up losing your own.